there. Also, you look at, like, this is where Columbus is. This will be another big Clinton margin. Probably a little bit less than half the vote is in there. So there are some definite big pockets on this map where Hillary Clinton can make up ground. But again, and this is a theme you're going to hear from me, you've probably heard from me like a broken record tonight. It's these small rural counties. And let me show you exactly what I mean. We've talked about Youngstown itself being sort of the prototypical Trump area, white, blue collar, working class. Well, Youngstown itself in Mahoning County, you can see, actually, this is about what Democrats usually get out of there. No surprise here, but it's the rural areas around there. Check this out. Let me go right down here and show you, compared to 2012, what we're seeing tonight. Look at this county right here. These are small counties, but check this out. Trump is leading here by 40 points. Do you know what Mitt Romney's margin in this county was 4 years ago? 12. Tonight, it is 40. Check this one out. Right down here, Jefferson County. Donald Trump's margin is 27. Mitt Romney's margin was 5 points 4 years ago. Check this out right here. Oh, that's supposed to be a mark. And this one right here, Donald Trump in Belmont County by 36 tonight. Mitt Romney's margin here was 8 points. These are small counties, but multiply this by hundreds, because we're seeing it in Ohio and we're seeing it all over the country tonight.
Steve Kornacki, that's one way of displaying it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, what's happening right now, big picture, is that there's nothing that Donald Trump has won that was on the Clinton map of expectations. There's no state that everybody assumed and the Clinton campaign assumed would be theirs that has now gone to Donald Trump. What's happened is, in Ohio, as Steve was just explaining, in Virginia, in Florida, in New Hampshire, in Michigan, in Minnesota, in North Carolina, and all of these places that the Clinton campaign is planning to win or hoping to win or trying really hard to win, it's too close to call.
The reds are redder. The Republicans voting in this election are motivated.
Yes, that's exactly right. You're getting places, you're not getting places to flip from Romney, from Obama to Trump. But the places that went for Romney are going for Trump by even larger margins in some places, as Steve was just explaining.
We've had a bit of a change of personnel. Casey Hunt is here with us. Steve Schmidt is here with us. If you follow hockey, it's just the next line. And Casey, you've been off reporting.
Yeah.
What can you report about what both parties are witnessing here?
There's been a pretty dramatic shift in the conversation that's going on with the people that I have been talking to all night. At 7 o'clock, both Democrats and Republicans that I was talking to were saying, we're confident Hillary Clinton's going to win this election. We think that Democrats are going to win the Senate with either 50 or 51 seats. And that seemed to be an across-the-board opinion, both establishment Republicans and Democrats. I would say that has changed pretty dramatically in the last 2 hours. Obviously, there's still a lot of information out. We could go county by county and explain why that is. But there are a lot of Democrats who are nervous about what's happening, particularly in the exurbs of Florida. They're seeing such high vote rates for Trump that they're starting to wonder, what does that mean for Pennsylvania? What does that mean for Michigan? And I've also have sources who are now saying, hey, Democrats have much less chance of taking the Senate back right now. There was a conversation, actually, I just got off the phone with Senator Joe Manchin, because I've been picking up a lot of intense speculation that in the event there was a 50-50 Senate, he might be somebody who would switch parties, potentially become an independent. Was he telling people in West Virginia he was going to become an independent? I have to tell you, I couldn't get a firm commitment from him that he was definitely going to be a Democrat for the next 2 years. He says, no, I'm not going to say that. But on the other hand, he wanted to quash some of this speculation and say, hey, I still really believe in Hillary Clinton. That was his main message. He says, she went back to West Virginia. You remember that kind of mistake she made talking about coal miners and putting them out of work. She went back to correct that. So a lot of interesting chatter behind the scenes right now.
Oh, well, Joe Manchin is one of those. It's interesting. Actually, Joe Manchin and Claire McCaskill we think of as very different cats. Ideologically, the two of them are not that far from one another. When Claire McCaskill runs in Missouri, she brags about the fact that she considers herself to be and is considered by some publications to be the centrist, the center, the fulcrum on which the Senate turns in terms of her spot on the ideological number line. Joe Manchin looks like a Republican in some of the ways that he votes, but his loyalty to Hillary Clinton in this race has been, I think, an important thing for the Democratic Party in terms of its sense of itself.
Let's hear what the Clinton camp is telling Kristen Welker over at the Javits Center at Clinton headquarters tonight. Kristen?
Well, Brian, there's obviously a lot of focus and concern about the fact that Florida is so close. Obviously, those early returns that we saw very early in the evening suggested that the heavily Democratic areas were turning out in big numbers, but now those heavily Republican areas answering. I've been talking to top Clinton campaign officials, though, who say, look, we're not panicking. We have a number of paths to 270, and that's what Secretary Clinton's surrogates are saying as well. They say, look, we never thought that we needed to win Florida, but it's a game over state. But, Brian, I have to tell you, if she doesn't win Florida, obviously it makes her path tougher. So you're looking at states like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Michigan as must-win. So that takes me to Michigan. I have been surveying all of the surrogates here, campaign officials who say they are going to hold court in Michigan. They go back to the ground game. The fact that she has 35 offices set up there, they've been set up there for months now, and they've been pounding the pavement for days. So they think they're going to hold court in Michigan, but obviously the stress level has gone up a notch here as they've seen how close Florida is. Brian?
There's a palpable, I know someone is speaking, but in shots of the crowd earlier tonight as people were arriving and very excited, thinking they were going to be present at what was very clearly and obviously a victory rally. Now we're watching what appears to be videotape of Chuck Schumer talking.
That is correct, Brian. And I have to tell you, at the beginning of this night, there were moments in which this crowd broke out into cheering. Those moments are getting fewer and far between. And I think you pick up on the optics and the mood in the room, Brian, which certainly has become a lot more tense as they have seen these screens light up with a lot of red. But again, Secretary Clinton's top surrogates say they're still confident that she has a path to 270, that she still has a number of paths to 270. But Florida making everyone a little bit more jittery than they had anticipated at this hour, Brian.
9:28 Eastern Time. We don't have answers.
No, and we've got all of, I mean, look at, that's actually the exact right banner to put up there. Too close to call? Florida, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Georgia, Michigan, and Minnesota. All too close to call. And granted, the night is young. A lot is going to happen. A lot of those states are going to get resolved. But in Florida, we got 94% of the vote in, and it's still too close to call. North Carolina, 3/4 of the vote is in. Virginia, more than 3/4 of the vote is in. And these are all still close. So, I mean, obviously, this is going to be down to the wire in a lot of these places. Chris?
It's an uneven situation because we would have expected Georgia, if this was going to be a good night for Trump, to have gotten Georgia a long time ago tonight. So that's a question there. So he's not strong across the board, I don't think. But, you know, I've been saying Pennsylvania is the firewall, and I think it's. But who could have predicted this anyway? I'm not going to say I know it's going to happen. I don't know this exurb vote we keep hearing about. Well, we've been polling professionally in this country for about a century, and we've been polling presidential elections that long and trying to get it right. And if we'll see. It's early.
The one big question about tonight was always, was everybody wrong? Were all the polls wrong? Were they failing to account for this X factor of these voters who were suddenly so motivated, angry, many of whom had been Democrats for decades? It's possible we're now seeing that play out.
Steve Schmidt, people I know discuss doing segments in our business on these new words that entered our lexicon recently, like Brexit and FARC. And you'd hear these words at a Trump event, and that was the context.
Look, this is the second of 4 really consequential global elections with big implications. The next will be the French presidential, the German chancellor's race. This phenomenon is playing out across the whole of the Western democracies, fueled by a collapse of trust in institutions. And we look at these results early on tonight. Politics is an expectations game, and no one had the expectation that we would be sitting here looking at the margins. Donald Trump vastly overperforming expectations of where this would be at this hour tonight. This is much closer than Democrats were saying, and you have to be worried tonight if you're a Democrat who was saying earlier that Donald Trump is going to lose Florida by 5 points. You're obviously seeing this surge of rural vote in the state, and that vote, if it surges in Ohio, if it surges in Pennsylvania, if it surges in Michigan, is going to become a very, very long night for the Clinton campaign.
It's also an interesting diagnostic moment for the professional nature of politics. I mean, Hillary Clinton has outspent Donald Trump in terms of ads. She has out-organized him in terms of field offices. Her ground game is not only vastly bigger, it's vastly more intense. It's better integrated with the Democratic Party. Trump has done all of these things either not at all or in a new way or handing it off to the Republican Party in a way that a lot of people thought, well, when rubber meets the road, he just won't be able to execute. And he also made it through the Republican primary process, spending 5 cents on ads and beating 17 other candidates. So, I mean, he may be showing that again tonight.
They're tied. Trips to Florida over the course of this campaign, 25. We're going to take a break. The same warnings if something happens, if one of these states flips and we are able to make a call, we'll come flying out of the break. Otherwise, we'll be back right after this. (9:36 p.m. Eastern Time). Let's take a look at where we are. The following states we have as too close to call, starting with Florida, a razor's edge race there. Pennsylvania, too close to call, 20 electoral votes. Ohio, too close to call. Georgia, too close to call. Michigan, too close to call. North Carolina, too close to call. Virginia, too close to call. Minnesota, too close to call. New Hampshire, too close to call. To the electoral race, the race to 270, 137 to 104, advantage Trump. Steve Kornacki is at the board with some new numbers in Virginia and Florida, they tell me.
Yeah, let's take a look at Virginia. And as you were speaking there, Brian, we actually got an update on the statewide vote. We see Clinton's been playing from behind. The question here has largely been about Northern Virginia, how much turnout, how much support she can get. Can she stem this gap? So it's now down to 25,000. Hillary Clinton's gap in Virginia, as I say this sentence, is 25,000 votes. Now, that just tightened significantly in the last few seconds, so I'm sort of finding this out with you. It looks like we just got more vote in Fairfax County again. This is sort of the mother lode of them in Northern Virginia. You see a lead there for Hillary Clinton now of about 90,000 votes. I believe, I'd have to go back and check, but I believe that there is still vote outstanding. Not much. This is a county where President Obama was reelected 4 years ago by a margin of 109,000 votes. Hillary Clinton's getting the same sort of level of support, so she can probably squeeze, I don't know, rough estimate here, another 10, 20,000 out of Fairfax County. You look at Prince William County, Hillary Clinton leading here by about 4,000. Looks like some more vote just came in here. This one of all the Northern Virginia counties, I think, has the most still to come in. She could probably squeeze out, again, roughly here, between, say, 10 and 20,000 there. And also, it looks like in Richmond, the city of Richmond, there's still maybe about 40% to come in there. Hillary Clinton could squeeze out. So the votes appear to be there, at least in theory, for Hillary Clinton to overcome a margin. Now you see it's down to 21,000. The votes appear to be there in Northern Virginia and Richmond. The wild card in all this, I keep saying I can't really point to one red county like one of these Democratic counties where you're going to see a big Trump vote. The scattered vote still coming in the red parts of Virginia, but the opportunity there for Hillary Clinton to make up the number in Virginia certainly exists. But again, we weren't even supposed to be talking about Virginia this way at this hour. Let's take a look right now in Florida. So the margin now, look at this. It's sitting there at about 138,000 votes right now. That's been pretty stubborn from the Democrat standpoint. They've got a lot still to make up. You can see Broward. Again, I told you, we're still sort of in the dark here about how much is left. The turnout, the total turnout here in 2012 was 750. You add that together, and you're pretty much at 750,000 right now. So I'm not sure how much the Democrats can squeeze out of Broward, out of Palm Beach, out of Miami-Dade. You're getting close to your 2012 levels. Again, still looks like this might be in now. Still looks like, I think, some Republican vote to come in Santa Rosa here, sort of in the peninsula. That's a lot of ground for Hillary Clinton to make up here with what we're looking at.
Steve Kornacki at the board with Virginia and Florida. We have a photograph tweeted out on the account of Ivanka Trump. This is the experience of watching the returns at Trump Tower in Midtown Manhattan tonight before they go over to the New York Hilton. Nobody goes nowhere until we figure out just what it is we're marking this evening. But you see the assorted Trumps and Pences. And pensive, I guess, would describe.
I desperately want to know what Mike Pence is looking at. Because I know what everybody else is looking at, but Mike Pence sees something else.
It is evocative of the Situation Room the night they got bin Laden, only for an entirely different subject matter, but the concentration and on people's faces.
I see a winner in that group. I see Mike Pence. Yeah. He won both the Senate race and the presidential electoral votes in his state of Indiana, and this is going to be a competitive race for president. He jumped on this horse when it didn't look too good, and this is going to be a competitive race for president. He's going to look like a smart Paul.
Let's go to Chris Hayes right now, who's at our breaking news desk, keeping an eye basically on the globe tonight in terms of what else is going on. Chris?
Rachel, we've seen throughout the campaign when Trump's chances have increased, they've tended to send some panic through markets, and right now, as this night has developed in a highly uncertain fashion, global markets are roiling quite a bit. We have Ron and Sana, I believe, on the line from CNBC, with Dow futures trading down about 500 points. Ron, can you give me the roundup of how global markets are moving as the entire world watches these returns come in?
Well, Chris, this is going to be the fear of Brexit Part 2, as was discussed earlier in the program. A surprising result from tonight's vote would unwind the gains that we saw on Wall Street. In just the last 2 days, the Dow gained almost 400 points, rebounding after a 9-day loss, which was the longest loss the market had suffered since 1980. And this rebound on Monday and Tuesday came after Jim Comey had backed away from the email investigation. The market effectively today and yesterday pricing in a Hillary Clinton victory. A big donor that I talked to that works with Hillary Clinton thought this morning that she was going to win in a landslide. There's some confusion now, obviously, as to whether or not those internal polls that the Clinton organization had were even remotely accurate, or any polls for that matter. So you get this rebound effect. World markets will sell off. The post-Brexit sell-off in London, for instance, was about a 5 to 7% two-day affair. We could expect the dollar to go down. The Mexican peso will fall in value. The Mexican stock market will fall in value, since Donald Trump has targeted that country with respect to both building a wall and altering trade treaties between the two countries. We have to watch China, since he's spoken negatively about our relations with them. So there will be worldwide repercussions in financial markets, and expect, I would imagine, if Mr. Trump were declared the winner tonight, that you could see about a 3 to 5% pullback in the next day or two.
All right, Ron and Sana from CNBC. We should note the Mexican peso, which has been kind of a key indicator of some of the volatility. It's where money has flowed in and out of as global financial markets try to assess the future. That is down around 8.5% right now. So there is a lot of hot and panicky money in global markets slashing around. Watching this with bated breath. Rachel, back to you.
Chris Hayes, thank you. Wow, Dow futures down 500 points. That has been an unusual marker for the volatility sense and the sense of Donald Trump's prospects in this race. That's an exclamation point on it tonight.
Another break for us. We're back with our live coverage right after this. No one has the advantage of information tonight. No one has an inside read, a private poll. We're all working out of the same books, in some cases off the same rules, and in some cases people are learning to their detriment old sets of rules. There's a word for what's happening. It's called a barn burner. Steve Kornacki, I see him over at the board tinkering. I just saw Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. What were you doing in Mecklenburg County?
They're updating the votes every 5 or 6 seconds. It's just I want to make sure. But let's take you through the math in Carolina quick. Look, what she's down right now is about 87,000 votes in North Carolina right now. Where could Hillary Clinton make this up if she's going to win the state? There's 3 places you're going to look. One of them you just gave gave it away there. Mecklenburg. Now, look, in 2012, the total number of votes cast out of Mecklenburg County was 445,000. You add these together, you're a little more than 100,000 short of that. So she could gain, if this pattern holds, about 30,000 votes or so out of Mecklenburg County. Where else does she look? The bad news for Hillary Clinton, if you look in Wake County, the sort of big vote center up there, looks like the vote is in. The good news for her, if you go next door, Durham County, 145,000 votes were cast here 4 years ago. You can see a lot of votes still to come in and a huge Clinton margin here. So there's an opportunity for her to pick up votes there. And also one more place you would look. Let me make sure I get it. It's the dot. Let me make sure I get it. This is where Winston-Salem is. And again, it looks like there's probably about 100,000 votes outstanding here. Those three pockets, when you're looking at the total statewide gap she's facing, which sits right now at about 90,000 votes, those three pockets are enough. The problem, again, there's also red area to fill in that'll lead into whatever Hillary Clinton gains there.
Steve Kornacki, thank you. Again, Virginia right now, we got about 80% of the vote in. It's almost the same in North Carolina, about 79% of the vote in. In Florida, that's where we've got 95% of the vote in, but all of those races still considered to be too close to call. Interesting. Georgia was an early closing tonight, but in Georgia, less than half of the vote is in.
45%.
45% of that vote is in. In New Hampshire, even less. In New Hampshire, we've got less than a third of the vote in. In Pennsylvania, we've got barely over a quarter of the vote in. So a number of these states, the too close to call is the headline here, but watching the proportion of that vote come in, it's really important.
In Pennsylvania, I just talked to Governor Rendell, and I've been following the Philadelphia political machine there. Bob Brady, the boss of the machine up there, told me he could bring in a 450,000 plurality out of the city. According to Rendell, just now he's beating that. He's getting 450 and a 300,000 from the four suburban areas. It looks like in a sweep Pennsylvania. So the firewall is holding for Clinton, but to the old politics of machine politics and the suburban advantage she has now among women especially. I think whatever else happens south of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is probably going to be the firewall that holds.
Right now, Clinton. Pennsylvania, even though there's only a quarter of the vote in, you're saying that in key areas they're hitting their targets.
Well, it's very professional in Philadelphia. They know every single voting division. Every committeeman or committeewoman is right on top of it. This vote is known.
They each have a drone assigned to them.
No, this is old school. No, they have 100 hours. Yeah, that's better than a drone.
Casey Hunt?
Pennsylvania aside, Donald Trump can still only win this race if he wins Florida, which is why a source close to the inside the Trump war room says Trump is visiting his own war room, and their emotions are hinged on the precinct by precinct results that they are getting in from Florida. And it has been a dramatic shift since 7 o'clock there, where they were very pessimistic, to now when they are much less so.
I don't want to be the first person to bring this up, but I'm going to be the first person to bring this up. In states like Florida, and in a number of the other states right now that are too close to call, an automatic recount is triggered if the results are less than 0.5%. Florida, it's important to know that, because in Florida, if you don't get within 0.5%, you can't even offer to pay to have another recount to which you would not otherwise be legally entitled. Right. So the percentage really matters even after the decimal point.
And Obama was just outside that.
That's right.
In 2000.
That automatically triggers mandatory Xanax and Ativan prescriptions across the country.
I've got that one. I'm mainlining it, baby, right now. Ask me how.
Just put it in the water, and we'll be fine.
Okay. Eugene's got a good idea. We'll look into that.
John Birch Society on line 3 for Gene.
Coming up on 10 p.m. calls. Maybe some answers, maybe not. A last break. We'll be right back. Here's a change. We're back from the break. 4 split electoral votes. Maine has moved from too early to too close. 19% of the vote in. A crazier and crazier state politically. Like so many states, there's a couple contained in one. Steve Kornacki lurking around the board again, and now it's Virginia.
So, new development to tell you about in Virginia just in the last few minutes. Hillary Clinton has now taken the lead. You can see a 6,000 vote lead roughly for Hillary Clinton in Virginia. Still vote coming in. If you're a Clinton fan in Virginia, 2 pieces of good news. One is that you now have the lead. 2 is that we keep talking about Northern Virginia. All that vote still not in. Fairfax County, the turnout here back in 2012 was 525,000. So there's still room for Hillary Clinton to gain votes there. Also, Richmond, the city of Richmond, turnout there about 75%, I should say, about 75% of the vote is in. So those are two Democratic vote-rich areas where there are still returns to come in. So Hillary Clinton's chances of hanging on to that lead, now you can see it's climbing to 6,000. You might feel good about that. The bad news, obviously, if you're a Clinton fan, is look how late it is in the evening, and we're talking about how Northern Virginia may bail you out in Virginia. This was a state with Tim Kaine on the ticket. With the population changes, we didn't think it would take this late in the night to be calling.
Kaine, former mayor of
Exactly.
Richmond, Virginia. Steve, I was going to ask about Loudoun County. There was a late Trump event up in Leesburg, and they were wondering, too little, too late.
Yeah, this is the story of Donald Trump's performance here, I think, in Virginia tonight. It's not really in this Northern Virginia area. You see Hillary Clinton. This is Loudoun right now, about a 22,000 vote lead, pretty much on course with what Barack Obama got 4 years ago. I mean, the story for Donald Trump, it's these rural areas. It's these, small red counties that just, big turnout, giant Trump supporting them. And we can show you some down here. Look at this, 82%, tiny rural county. But that's what you're looking at powering this thing.
Yeah, I don't want this word exurbs to become a thing. This is out in the country.
Yeah,
we have an expression for this, and this is the vote out in the country.
Southwestern Virginia is its own thing.
Where we've seen all the Trump signs for weeks and weeks and weeks and all summer long. So,
Nicole Wallace, you're the canary.
No, listen, I feel like I was wrong. I mean, this is really a tight race, and the Clinton campaign projected a lot more confidence than has been reflected in the way the evening has gone down so far. And no matter what happens, Trump had a lot more support in a lot more states among a lot more people than the polls detected up to this morning.
I am told Lawrence O'Donnell has more from the insiders. Lawrence?
We're here with Steve Schmidt and James Carville. James, I've seen you worried from time to time. I've never seen you more worried about anything than you were worried about Virginia. How are you feeling now?
Well, I feel much better. The party chair that I've been in contact with, and she's watching with the governor, and it's moving better, because if we lost Virginia, we probably were going to lose. So I feel much, much better about Virginia. But, and what Chris said about Pennsylvania is encouraging. I think all eyes are going to be on North Carolina now.
Steve, North Carolina.
Yeah, for sure. And she's behind in North Carolina. Look, my prediction was 320 to 340 electoral votes for her. I'm clearly wrong on that. This is going to be a very long night. It's going to be close. And you look at the rural vote that's coming in Florida, I don't think these things happen in isolation. So as we move into Ohio, we move into Michigan, we're going to see this phenomenon play out. But the presidency is up for grabs, clearly.
That's what you keep saying in our ongoing conversation here that the audience hasn't been a part of, is that this doesn't happen in isolation.
Right.
Talk about Michigan.
Well,
what can we expect in Michigan
if you have all this turnout in North Florida, if you have all this turnout in North Florida, if you have all this turnout in rural Virginia, if you have all this turnout, it's going to bleed over into Michigan. I mean, it's very hard for me to see a scenario. I hope I'm wrong. I desperately want to be wrong. I'm not in the business of being to be right here tonight, but it worries me about Michigan. We're getting to the point here. Yeah, there are several passed to 270, but we're getting to the point where some of them are getting cut off. I was, much more optimistic about Florida, obviously, but, still a very good chance that she'll be the next president. But, I would say to Democrats watching this, don't tune out yet.
Steve, a chance that she'll be the next president?
Yeah, for sure there's a chance she'll be the next president, but it's a lot closer than anybody expected, certainly in all our line of work.
Brian, we're going back to you for poll closings.
That quote from Steve Schmidt will find a life of its own tonight. The presidency is up for grabs. We just heard it there on live television. Both Mr. Carville and Mr. Schmidt exercising a whole lot of caution. The American people have a funny way of making sure they get heard, and they are being heard tonight. 10 o'clock hour is 5 seconds away. Here we go.
States here. This is
in gold. There they are. Here are the closings this hour. It is 10 p.m. in the state of Iowa. Our call for right now is too close to call. In the state of Nevada, our call for this hour is too close to call. In the state of Utah, and remember, favorite son in the race, three-way, too early to call. Clinton, Trump, McMullen. In the state of Montana, the Big Sky State goes to Donald Trump. So that red band, that red wall continues its trek west with the time zones. Here's the electoral race, 140-104. Here is the electoral. Here are the too close to call states. Florida of the battlegrounds, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia, Michigan, all of these too close to call. North Carolina, 81% in. Virginia, we've talked a lot about Virginia this last hour.
Look how close.
Minnesota, 12% of the raw vote in. New Hampshire and Maine. Too early to call. Here we go, Arizona, 11 electoral votes. Missouri, Trump in the lead, too early to call. Wisconsin, Colorado, and New Mexico. Let's pan down to the ice and bring up the map. Blue and red on Democracy Plaza. Here's your country so far. The states we've been able to call as the time zones head from east to west. You can see the big states we are waiting for.
Utah is such an interesting case study. Not even a case study. Utah is its own case, its own standalone politics and dynamics this year. If Evan McMullin is able to win the state of Utah tonight, and again, our call right now is that Utah is too early to call, and it is a three-way race between Trump, Clinton, and McMullin. If he wins Utah, that would be the first time a third-party candidate or an independent candidate gets electoral votes since George Wallace, right? 1968? I mean, if he can actually win that state, there's obviously Evan McMullin is not going to win the presidency, but if he wins that state in Utah, that'll be its own kind of history. But it is striking to see both Iowa and Nevada at this point as too close to call.
It could also throw the race into chaos if we come down to a place where neither of them can get to 270. His win, if he wins, his win in Utah could be what blocks either one of them from getting to 270.
With those 6 electoral votes there, there's also 2 potentially faithless electors out of the state of Washington, which is expected to go for Clinton, but 2 Bernie-supporting electors in Washington have suggested that
I love the phrase.
Out of it. Faithless
electors.
Steve Kornacki's at the board once again, and this time it's Michigan. Steve.
Starting to get returns from Michigan. Obviously, this is a state very late in the campaign. The Trump campaign said, we're going to put this on the map. The Clinton campaign started playing defense. What can we tell you? Pretty early here in the returns. Couple things to point out. First of all, we talk about this college, non-college white gap. I said there's 2 counties in Michigan that tell this story writ large for the entire country. Let me show you what's happening in both of them right now. First of all, this is Oakland County. This is the sort of quintessential college-educated white voter county. It is a big suburb. It is affluent, economically upscale. Most of the vote, maybe even all the vote, is now in. Hillary Clinton, you see, she's winning it. She's winning it by 8 points. This is basically the same margin Barack Obama got out of Oakland County.
Hey, Steve, I got to interrupt you. We have a call. This projection, New Mexico is going to Hillary Clinton. Remember the hubbub when Donald Trump showed up in New Mexico a few days before the election? Everyone said, what do they know? What do they know? Both parties, what do they know? Here's the electoral map, 140-109, with New Mexico now.
5
with the
electoral
Democrats.
votes there, yeah.
That will give them a patch of blue to the west of Texas. So there's your map. Mr. Kornacki, please continue. Apologies.
No problem. I understand. So we're talking about Oakland County. This is the heart of the college-educated white voter. This is the big college-educated white voter county in Michigan. And you see, mostly in right now, Hillary Clinton's won it. Used to be a Republican county. Now Clinton wins by 8 points. But we said keep an eye right next door tonight on another giant county outside Detroit. That is Macomb County. Macomb County is where that term you hear in politics, Reagan Democrat, comes from. This place went for Reagan in the 80s. It swung back to the Democrats. Barack Obama won it. These are blue-collar white voters. Check out what's happening. It's early in Macomb County. Barack Obama won this county 4 years ago. Barack Obama won this county 8 years ago. Democrats said all those stories about us struggling in Macomb County, they're a thing of the past. Well, check this out. Donald Trump, it's early here. He's leading by 20. This matches what polling showed, though, in the run-up to this election might happen in Macomb County. This is a county that's going to churn out at least 400,000 votes tonight. Donald Trump, if this holds, this is a major shift within the state of Michigan. This is a big reason why his campaign decided to target this state. Now, if you're a Democrat, you still have some counties that are yet to come in. We can take a look at Wayne. This is where Detroit is. It's not just Detroit. You'll end up seeing about 800,000 votes come out of here. This will end up probably going Clinton's way in a big way. Also, right next door, this is where the University of Michigan is. College town, very liberal. A lot of votes still to come there. One quick thing we can point out, too. Where did Hillary Clinton go when she went into Michigan? She went right outside Grand Rapids. She delivered a speech that was all about her relationships, friendships, willingness to work with Republicans. She was trying to make inroads in Republican Michigan. This county 4 years ago, Mitt Romney got 68%. Clinton spoke there yesterday. You see, it may have made a tiny impact, but 63% for Trump there right now.
Steve Kornacki, can I just ask you one quick question, Steve?
Hang on, I got a projection. NBC News is projecting that when all the votes are counted, Donald Trump will be the winner in Missouri. 10 electoral votes, another piece in the Midwest, and another patch of red. The race to 270 looks like this: 150, 109. Let's look at Missouri on the map.
Thank you.
Steve Kornacki, can I ask you one impressionistic question in terms of what you've been watching tonight? No, I can't.
Oh.
You there,
I'm here.
Steve?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I was hiding behind a pillar.
If you could repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Here's my question. As you have been watching these returns come in, as you have been tracking these county by county results, as we've been looking at these dozen states now that are too close to call, roughly, are you seeing anything where the polling seems like it was flat wrong, where the polling seems like it was radically off in terms of what we're seeing tonight on election night?
Yeah, I don't know radically. I mean, when you think about it, Florida, it looked like Clinton was leading steadily in the polls by 2-3 points. Probably if you averaged them together, it looked like she had a slight advantage there. We knew Florida 4 years ago was the closest state on the map. It was decided by less than a point. So when you're looking at how close it is right now, it's not a radical difference. It's not like there's a miss there by 10 points. But I think the accumulation of all those polls in Florida, for that matter, North Carolina, you started adding them up, and it just looked like Hillary Clinton had a small but steady lead in those states. So those are closer. I think Virginia, the fact that Virginia is as close as it is, I think that ends up being a surprise. There were a few polls late there that showed that thing might be closing. But I mean, I think there was an expectation, a pretty broad expectation among politics people 2 weeks ago that Virginia could even be a double-digit win. There was that idea that it was Tim Kaine's home state and that demographically, those college-educated white suburbanites in the northern Virginia suburbs, they were just coming to dominate even a little bit in the suburbs around Richmond. But again, there is that equally strong message that's being delivered tonight by white voters in sort of rural areas, exurbs. They are coming out in big numbers. You're taking, and you've been talking about this, they're taking counties we knew were red. They're making them redder tonight.
Steve Kornacki, thank you very much. Super helpful in terms of that context.
Chris Matthews.
When you look at Michigan historically, it shouldn't be such a shock that it might go for Trump, because there is a history of very conservative white voting in Macomb County.
Oh, yeah.
George Wallace won the 1972 Democratic, you know, Gene, won that primary out there. Democrats, which includes a lot of African-American voters. So even with that shift, I mean, that minority role, it is a conservative area. I think we make a mistake thinking the South's all south of here. A lot of it's mixed around. And I think that contiguous map we're looking at is, however, very powerful. I think we are increasingly a country that sees itself as a bicoastal progressive part of the world, and a very, not necessarily isolationist, but very traditional center of the country, and conservative and white, if you will, and especially the prairie states. Look at them up there, the plain states, the Dakotas, all those states, they just go Republican. A lot of this map, in all fairness, could have been filled in a couple of months ago. The interesting thing is the states that we're following tonight are the ones we've been wondering about for months.
Absolutely.
So we're pretty much where we were months ago in terms of knowing how this is going.
It's January.
What's interesting is it's very cloying. It's very teasing. It's not telling us the answer.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, all we're getting is what we knew when we went in. Now, the interesting race, of course, are the Senate races where you saw, as you pointed out before you got on tonight, the Indiana race. It's really a blowout for the
Todd Young beating
the knockout. A great name, by the way, for a newcomer, Todd Young, running against a well-known Evan Bayh, who was a longtime popular figure in that state. Elected, his father was a senator, he was governor, he was a senator. He could have stayed there forever had he stayed there.
Exactly, and they just decided he was past his sell-by date, right? He just wasn't.
You don't go away and come back home and say, I've been away. And I think that's a fact. I think we're interesting. But also tonight, we don't know who's going to run the Senate. As a friend of mine pointed out today, we have 3 branches of government at stake tonight. Later tonight, we'll know that. The presidency, the United States Senate, and the Supreme Court. All of them lie before the American people's tabulations tonight, between now and hopefully 2 in the morning, when we sort of begin to think it's time to take a nap, at least.
So
I think it's a fact. To me, I love this because I love exciting close races. I hope there's clarity. I hope there is a concession speech by the loser. I hope the American people go to bed and say, at least we have an electoral system that works, that's clean, it's trustable, it's not rigged. And in the end, we had an exciting race, which, as surprising and as disturbing as it was, had a conclusion.
I think the idea that Michigan is not in reach for Republicans is one that people forget when you come down to the final stretch. Michigan is always in the game plan on a traditional campaign, and George W. Bush spent a lot of time campaigning in the Upper Peninsula.
Good reminder.
Michigan is always available to you in the beginning, and then depending on the contours of the race, depending on how you're doing in the battleground states, you simply have to make choices. It's like Pennsylvania and New Jersey for Republicans. You always put it on your wish list because of the nature of the people who live there. They do have a lot of traditional values in common with traditional Republican candidates. So this, again, is exactly what Donald Trump should have been doing if he'd had a traditional campaign all along. If he'd had a traditional campaign all along, he would have been there. Ken Mellman, who was George W. Bush campaign chairman, had a metric for touching these states and these kind of voters every 10 or 12 days. So if he wins, he will have done it despite.
And how would you put Michigan and Wisconsin on that in terms? Wisconsin's another.
I literally was on a bus tour through both. I mean, I ate custard, which they call ice cream in Wisconsin, and it's a long drive.
You have another thing. A living memory of how great it was. In Pennsylvania, the steel cities of Western Pennsylvania, like McKeesport, places like that where the cities boomed, and every guy coming out of World War II had a job coming out of World War II. White guys, mainly, but a lot of jobs out there. In Detroit, Motor City, Motown.
A city of 2 million people, built for 2 million people.
It's a boomtown. We made the cars for the world. We made steel for the world in Pennsylvania. We were the center of the universe in terms of manufacturing. These people all remember that, and they want it back.
And Trump talked about it from the beginning of his primary run.
Nirvana back to you.
Exactly. That's what he said. That's what he promised. How he could possibly deliver that, no one knows. But that was the promise. I do wonder, though, whether a more conventional Donald Trump running a more conventional campaign would have done as well as this Donald Trump running this campaign.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Anyway,
what's your answer?
I think not. Actually,
he would have lost in the primary.
I think he would have lost in the primary. He would have lost to Donald Trump, right? I mean, there was he hit a nerve at the right moment with this sort of unconventional is not the word for it, at times crazy approach to campaigning.
He could have reined it in after becoming the nominee, but I know we haven't from him, right?
Yeah.
Fine-tuning Donald Trump.
We have two pieces of business. We have a Senate call in North Carolina. Burr is our projected victor in the Senate race in North Carolina.
This was a tough
thought
race.
This would go later tonight. Richard Burr, the projected winner. And over to Steve Kornacki for some new math out of Florida.
Let's take a look at Florida. We've been saying, what's the gap Hillary Clinton has to overcome as these final votes come in? Well, it remains steady. Look where we stand right now. Hillary Clinton, about 136,000 votes. That's the window we've been in for a long time now. And frankly, she's running out of places on this map to find 136,000 votes. The big hope for Democrats has been the Gold Coast, the big 3 Democratic counties down here in the southeastern part of the state. I'll show you, though, there does not seem to be much vote left out in these places. Let me start with Broward. That is the biggie. About 755,000 votes were cast in Broward County 4 years ago. That was a high turnout election, 755. You see, they've blown past that number here. Doesn't mean they're all in. There are some left. There are not a lot left, I don't think. Also, Palm Beach County, 600,000 votes were cast here. You can see, again, they've blown past that. Miami-Dade County, it was 875. You can see they are well past that. There is big Democratic turnout in these places, and Hillary Clinton's getting the margins Barack Obama did, maybe even a little more. But there is enormous turnout in Republican areas of this state as well. There also might be a little vote left up here, Volusia County, think Daytona Beach. This was dead even 4 years ago. Mitt Romney won this thing by a hair. Donald Trump has turned this into a double-digit win, and also the turnout is much higher. Let me show you this. Overall, statewide turnout in Florida, if you add these numbers together, you're over 9 million. You're north of 9 million. You're probably sitting at about 9.2, 9.3 million if you add them all together. Keep that in mind as I show you what the results were 4 years ago. We thought this was high turnout. Look at this. You were sitting back, when you add all the third-party candidates together, about 8.5 million in Florida 4 years ago. So that is considerably higher turnout. Democratic organization, Democratic turnout, those big counties, a big story tonight. Republican turnout is too.
Maria Teresa Kumar is with us here in the studio, CEO of Voto Latino. Maria Teresa, I wanted to get your take on the Florida numbers Steve just walked us through.
Well, one of the things that I would be looking at right now is how many of those Republicans basically split their ticket. We know that roughly about 100,000 of them split their ticket for Hillary Clinton, but then went down ballot for Marco Rubio, securing his win. So of those individuals that are left over, I'm curious to see how many people, and I would look specifically, me speaking about Republican women that decide to vote for Hillary, but then went down ballot.
All right, Maria Teresa Kumar, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
For homeowners all across America. Get the great rate you deserve, wherever you are. Wherever you are.
Great rates for Buzzards Bay and great rates for San Jose. Kent that's got great rates for everyone.
Apply today at PenFed.org.
This fall, the most popular magazine in the world is bringing the most compelling crime stories to life on Investigation Discovery.
I just want to talk to my sister. I can't even do that.
10-month-old girl was reported missing.
My heart sank, and I just knew.
These are the stories that changed everything.
The entire world was heartbroken.
We bring viewers closer to these stories than anybody else can.
People Magazine investigates. All new, Mondays at 10. Only on Investigation Discovery.
Let's talk about early voting. Does that tell you something about energy and attitude?
If you were watching tonight, you could have known he went home for a little while because he used the word attitude on the air, on television. He talked about
Brian,
someone's
you know so well. Brian.
We are back. We have a major call coming out of the vote. We'll try to get it up there, and it is Ohio. Donald Trump, the projected winner in the state of Ohio. 18 electoral votes, a hugely important piece of real estate where that comparison is concerned. 168, 109 in the race to 270. Here's where it looks like, this is where it looks like as a color, filling in the red alongside Indiana to the west of Pennsylvania, down on through West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and so on.
Ohio and Iowa had been the two traditional swing states that the Clinton campaign felt like were, or the Trump campaign felt like were most within their grasp. Iowa and Ohio consistently have been polling in ways that have been favorable to Donald Trump. Obviously, Ohio is the archetypal battleground, but I think everybody's been feeling like it was leaning toward him. Still, that's got to shake the Clinton confidence even more than these other close races do right now. I do want to point out one thing about North Carolina, which we are watching so intently right now. Again, North Carolina is one of these states that is too close to call, and it has been so for a very long time. Even right now, with 83% of the vote in, it is still too close to call. Trump in the lead. But we were talking a little bit earlier on about the other two big ticket races in North Carolina. One of them, this Senate race, Richard Burr, incumbent Republican senator, trying to hold on to his seat against Deborah Ross, who ran a good campaign against him. Burr is now the projected winner of that seat. He will hold on to that seat. The other big ticket item in North Carolina is the governor's race, and it's been fascinating to watch these governor's numbers come in out of this governor's race in North Carolina. Right now, again, with 84% of the vote up, it is too early to call. Too early to call in North Carolina, but you see these guys deadlocked 49-49. So if you're looking for sort of advice as to how North Carolina is going to go in the presidential, that Senate race may make you think that Donald Trump is going to pull it out. This governor's race gives us no information because this is as close as they come.
Yeah, historically, you have to win Ohio if you're a Republican. It's a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition. Winning Ohio does put him at the edge now, possibly winning the election. However, I do think we're going to see a pattern which is traditional. The Republican, if you look at the country, is basically divided 50-50. Winning Ohio, then losing Pennsylvania makes sense tonight. We'll see if it does end up making sense.
One thing I will say about this Ohio call is that this is something that the Clinton campaign was prepared for. So when they were setting out their map that said, OK, we have all these more paths than the Trump campaign, it included losing Ohio and losing Iowa. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, this news should be tempered just a little bit. I think the question is still their path. Don't forget, we haven't even started talking about Colorado. And there were some late questions in this race about Colorado and what the movements there were going to be. Their path is Virginia, Colorado, and it's through the South.
All right. Speaking of Colorado, let's do some of these Senate races, because the first one on our list, we've been trying to fall back and catch up with these Senate races this evening, is Michael Bennet returning from Colorado. There will be
Democratic incumbent there.
Inevitable talk about Michael Bennet joining leadership, I think, in the years to come. A very popular figure. And more about Colorado as a state after this. The leader of the Democrats predicted, people guess it's going to be led by Chuck Schumer of New York, who had an easy time returning to the Senate. We're just going to go through these. Jerry Moran in Kansas. John Hoeven, North Dakota. Getting these as you're seeing them. John Thune going back to the Senate from South Dakota. He had an interesting history with Donald Trump during this campaign. John Boozman, Arkansas. Georgia, it's going to be Johnny Isaacson. In Iowa, the longtime KG Republican veteran Chuck Grassley going back. And Mike Lee, the popular Republican, is going back from Utah. Here's the Senate again. Democrats with one net gain, but this is early.
Yeah, but the Senate races that are outstanding right now are a bunch of fascinating ones. In Missouri, I believe our characterization in Missouri with Roy Blunt trying to return to the Senate, the Republican, against a Democratic challenger named Jason Kander, I believe our characterization there is that is still too early to call.
I thought that was too early, yeah.
In Missouri, we do have a presidential call that Missouri has gone to Donald Trump at the presidential level, but this Senate race right now still too early to call. Also, in terms of too close to call Senate races, big names. Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania against Katie McGinty, the Democrat. That's too close to call. In New Hampshire, the Kelly Ayotte race against the Democratic governor, Maggie Hassan. That is too close to call. And in Nevada, we've got Joe Heck, the Republican, up against Catherine Cortez Masto, who's the Democrat trying to take Harry Reid's seat there.
We have
also too close.
Excuse me. We have a major projection. In the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, the projected winner is Hillary Clinton. Casey Hunt?
Campaign breathing a sigh of relief there.
Sure, sigh of relief. And, you know, we were talking earlier, and I had a source talking to me about, and forgive me for using a House race as an example here, but Barbara Comstock, she's a representative from Northern Virginia, Fairfax area. I'm told her internal polling had her tied. And at the end of the day, she won, or she looks like she's on track to win by almost 10 points with 90% of the vote in.
Real.
So we have been talking about what may have gone wrong here. And even if Hillary Clinton comes out on top here, it's very clear there was something going on in this polling. I think that's a pretty sharp example in an area that should have gone over.
I was just checking that race you're talking about. It's Virginia 10, Barbara Comstock, seen as a bellwether race.
Yes.
She is the projected winner in that race right now. It looks like the margin is 8 points in her favor. Luann Bennett was the Democrat there. Everybody thought that was going to be a squeaker. It's not.
You know, the Washington Post endorsed Comstock. I think you bear a bit of the responsibility for this.
But it seems obvious from what's happening nationwide that newspaper endorsements are not the most
Guy's a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist. He doesn't speak for the gray lady of Washington,
but newspaper look at all the newspapers that endorse Donald Trump, right?
But, you know, in terms of these bellwether races, we're still waiting for a result on Florida. Florida is obviously going to be huge. One of the Republican incumbents in the House who was thought to be endangered in this year of Donald Trump, who definitely distanced himself from Donald Trump, was Carlos Curbelo, the Republican Cuban-American representative in Florida District 26. Carlos Curbelo has also won his seat tonight. He will also be returning to Congress. And so we're looking for these signs in terms of these too close to call races, and we're seeing them mix up a little bit.
My two-word nomination for what went wrong with prediction as to actually is yard signs. No one counted the yard signs. And I think if you see those matching glasses and mustaches, that means that's a pollster if you see them out in public. Steve Kornacki with the route to 270, which really becomes the story. There are two specific routes, two specific campaigns at this hour.
Well, the question everybody's asking, I think, seeing the results come in, can Donald Trump win the presidency tonight? Let me take you through what it would take. We said a narrow path coming into tonight. Some things are going his way. We just showed you Ohio. Now, Hillary Clinton was just called the winner in Virginia. We can add that to her column. By the way, what you're seeing here, some of these states that are lighter colors, they haven't actually been called yet. For the purposes of this exercise, we're going to expect Trump to win in Idaho. We're going to expect Clinton to win California, Oregon, Washington. Keeping that in mind, what at this point would it take for Donald Trump to get to 270? Count up with me here. Start in New Hampshire. We got a too close to call race there. Let's say Donald Trump wins New Hampshire. Take a look in Maine. Now, you got the statewide, you got the first congressional district. The first congressional district's Portland, kind of Democratic. Let's say Donald Trump wins a district in Maine. In Maine, you get an electoral vote for a district. This is very rural. He's got a shot there. Take a look at Pennsylvania. Let's say Hillary Clinton holds Pennsylvania. Do we have something here? Red, excuse me, should be red. Let's say Hillary Clinton, see, I'm doing this on the fly here. Let's say Hillary Clinton gets Pennsylvania. Let's say Trump gets North Carolina. We see him leading down there right now. Yeah. Let's say Trump holds on in Georgia. Let's say Trump gets Florida, where he's leading right now. Look where he's starting to get to. Now, let's say Hillary Clinton holds the upper Midwest here. Let's say she gets Wisconsin. Let's say she gets Minnesota. Trump in Iowa. Let's say he gets Iowa. We'll give her right now Michigan. I know that's a very close state. Give that to her. Let's say Donald Trump gets the one district in Nebraska. Let's give Hillary Clinton Colorado. That's been looking Democratic. Let's say Trump gets Arizona, and look where he is, 268. And at that point, if he were to get Nevada, he'd be over 270. If he were to lose Nevada, because there were some bad early signs for him there, if he could win Michigan, 284, and winning Michigan at 284, he could even absorb a loss perhaps, like if he were to somehow lose Arizona, still over 270 at that point. So this is the first time we can say it's very theoretical at this point. Things have gone Trump's way. He needs some of these states to actually be called for him, but there are paths to 270 that are opening up for Donald Trump as we speak.
Who else wants to talk to John Ralston?
Oh, yeah, I know. Our buddy John Ralston, who's the dean of the Nevada political.
He said it was over.
He said it was over based on the early vote. He said if you compare the early vote now to the early vote then.
He was definitive.
He was definitive.
Well, what we've got right now, obviously, North Carolina continues to be fascinating. Florida continues to be fascinating. But we still don't have calls in Georgia, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. We still have a call in Maine. So there's a lot of these states that we thought for sure we would at least know by now, and we don't. Right now, that Michigan number that Steve Kornacki was talking about, that's so important. We've got less than a third of the vote in Michigan thus far, and that race considered too close to call. Donald Trump leading there, but less than a third of the vote in.
Lawrence O'Donnell, I have a question question for James Carville. Does he agree with me? Michigan ought to be renamed Michigan, Michigan, Michigan?
How did you know what we were talking about?
I didn't know.
We just spent a minute here on Michigan, and I think we might have an agreement on the table about just how important Michigan is. James Carville.
Look, if the Democrats lose Michigan, looking at Steve's map, I think this puppy's over. I mean, you stand by, because Michigan is going to be really critical. I mean, it was good we helped Virginia, but we were supposed to help Virginia. I mean, that was just sort of necessary. I hope Chris is right about Pennsylvania. North Carolina looks less than encouraging. Florida looks less than encouraging. I mean, the thing going to come down to Michigan.
Steve, Michigan.
Michigan's going to decide who the president of the United States is tonight.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
You've seen the map. Let's go back to where we began tonight. Florida. What do you see? Where do you think we are right now?
It's very ominous for Hillary Clinton. I don't think she's going to be able to make up the ground in Florida. It doesn't seem to me that there's enough outstanding vote share for her to be able to come back. But I think what we've seen is a surge of rural Republican red vote, and you see that early call in Ohio, though the Clinton campaign was expecting it, that portends ominously for Michigan. Culturally, there's an alignment of these voters, and you're seeing them perform, I think, at a consistent level across all of these states, which is vastly exceeding expectations. And it's something that Nicole was saying earlier. Donald Trump doesn't have a traditional ground game. And this is an organic surge of support that just wasn't seen, wasn't anticipated across the board in the predictive analysis and the models and in the polling.
Yeah. James, you've been on the phone to Florida. Are you writing off Florida at this point for Clinton?
I think it's very difficult. I'll be honest. They're doing it good to kind of spin it. It's closed. Looking at the map and looking what's out, I just don't see that many votes in Broward now. I think they'll get close to 950,000 people voting. They're going to blow way past the margins there, but he's still getting a third. I mean, for every 100,000, he gets your margins only. You win 66, he wins 33. I mean, the margin's only 30. It seems to me to be very difficult. I would love to be wrong. I would love to crow later tonight and say that she did carry Florida. I'm with Steve. The quickness of the Ohio call was disturbing. Not so much that we lost Ohio. That was always a real possibility, but that it came so quick.
The first brink you felt yourself on tonight was Virginia. That was the first one where you said, if Hillary Clinton doesn't win Virginia, it's lost. Now we've moved to Michigan. Michigan's the next stop on the must-win.
We thought going into the night, it was that he had break. He had to do this. He had to do that. It is now the Democrats have to. They don't have the margin. The path here is getting to be very narrow. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying as the night goes on, the path narrows, and it's narrowed through on Steve's map. It's pretty clear that Michigan is absolutely critical.
Steve, who do you see with the favored map at this point?
I think you have to, well, look, I think it's a 50-50 proposition, other than to say this, that Donald Trump had to drop a bunch of these states tonight, had to win. In every state that he's had to win, he's dropped. Right? He's dropped it into his column tonight. So he had a tight, narrow path. He had to pull an inside straight. He's on his way to pulling it. Now, so we'll see in Michigan. But you look at these numbers in Michigan, and you look at the cultural similarities, between Michigan and Ohio. I think at this hour, you certainly can't say that, she has an easy ride in the state of Michigan.
Brian, tonight, it's Michigan, Michigan, Michigan at this table.
Lawrence and our specialists, our insiders, thank you. We have another projection. Just as we were going to sneak away to a break, we have another projection, and that is that in the state of Colorado, when all the votes are counted, Hillary Clinton will pick up 9 electoral votes there. As we look at the race to 270, here's the bar chart, 168 to 131. Let's see what this looks like in blue and red. It certainly starts a vertical for the Democrats out west. They have a known vertical in California along the Pacific Ocean. But Chris Matthews, listening to those, our colleagues in the other studio, interesting.
Look, there's no other word for it. That this is a surprise, and that I've been looking at these maps going back to whenever they started making them, and it's beginning to look like a familiar map. It's beginning to look like a map we've gotten used to. And Colorado is more liberal than most of the West, and New Mexico is more Hispanic. And we're going to see that logic continue. I think the patterns that we're looking at, how Northern Virginia, though, is holding strong for Hillary Clinton. And not as strong as they thought, but it's going to be there. The suburbs of Philadelphia have led to be heard. I think Pennsylvania is strongly going to go for Hillary Clinton. And the fascinating thing is that Michigan, which was picked up on the radar screen of the Trump people about 2 weeks ago, for people that don't seem to have all the mechanisms and apparatus of politics, they had good ears.
And an airplane.
Yeah, and they picked up when I said, we better get out there and spend some time out there as an option to Pennsylvania, because they talked Pennsylvania for months, and they said, well, wait a minute, we can't do that. So now we're going to go up this other route. I mean, it's almost like the Civil War, General Lee looking for the place to go up, Yeah. And unfortunately, it's a lot like the Civil War, and we're going to take the next president to be a unifier, whoever it is. But I think that the fact that Utah, Nicole mentioned, that Evan McMullen could screw the whole thing up by 2 or 3 in the morning with this Zion vote, going back to Utah as an LDS guy and appealing to what we used to call our favorite son sort of election out there, could screw the thing up, because we do like to believe in this rickety system of ours actually working and it actually producing a president with 270 electoral votes. We haven't had this problem since back when those untied electors were elected back in the 60s, where we actually said, what are they going to do? I do think this is... punditry only goes so far, and it's based on history. Gene?
Yeah.
It's based on history.
Oh, I mean,
we don't have a history of tonight.
No, we don't. And so,
there's nothing in the logbook.
We should have known that based on the primary.
But, not just punditry, but the numbers. I mean, the polling seemed to indicate something something different from what we're seeing tonight.
So we're not all that far off the polls at this point. There hasn't been a shocker. Mm-hmm. The overall race being this close is shocking, I think, to a lot of people. But in terms of, Trump winning Ohio is not crazy. Hillary Clinton winning Virginia is not crazy. Mm-hmm. We still don't know about North Carolina and Florida.
We don't.
We haven't seen a race end up in a place that's radically different than the polls said it would end up.
But James is right. At the margin, we thought Virginia would have been early in the evening, and the fact that actually, on the other hand, we thought Georgia would be earlier in the evening. That's another fact.
Case, can you make your point again?
I just think that we should have seen this coming, because the primary was we were so surprised. No one thought that Donald Trump was ever going to get this far. Katie Tur has been saying this over and over and over again, as long as, she's been covering him. I have to say that when I was out with Hillary Clinton on the last week of the campaign, not this past weekend. This past weekend was a little bit different, but we were going from smallish staged event to smallish staged event, and at the time I thought this does not feel like covering a winning campaign in the final week. And I took some criticism for that from some sources, and this weekend felt like a winning campaign. The president, you all saw the rally on Independence Mall, but day to day you drive to these events, you drive past fields of Donald Trump signs. It's anecdotal, but it's there.
And anecdotally speaking, in terms of that Philadelphia event, one of the things that I noticed covering that live last night was, although that was an incredibly intense event in terms of the visuals and 33,000 people out in front of Independence Hall and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, and when Hillary Clinton gave her remarks, she was serious. She was almost tense. She did not at all seem psyched to be looking out at that huge numbers of people. There was no lightness to her, like relief, like, oh, this is over and I've got it. Right. You could see it. I'm not a body language person in terms of dealing with candidates, but I was so different than what I expected to see from her, given the stagecraft of that evening. And in fact, actually, the enthusiasm and excitement of the president himself to then see Hillary Clinton follow him and be workaday, serious, and almost terse.
Well, depending on how this ends up, though, I think the Clinton campaign could end up very, very happy that they decided to do that event in Philadelphia, right? Because it seems like it may shore up Pennsylvania, which they may need.
I'm walking into 30 Rock tonight, and a guy, I'll describe him, short and fat, yelled at me, jackass, and I yelled back something appropriate to him, which I do.
Friend of yours?
A real pal. This I know what, he was ginned up by the Clinton, the Obama thing, the Trump thing.
Yeah.
And it's been going on now, this anti-media. Could it be that when people are polled by pollsters, they see as the media,
this has been proffered,
they don't give an answer that's straight. They just don't even give an answer. They hang up on the person. They think they're part of that world. And this anti-media campaign of Trump's has been vicious, continual, and the heart of every rally Well, you know, you're there. Every rally, it's been like that against Katie Tur, generally, who she's
I've been
there.
at more Clinton rallies, than Trump rallies.
It's part of its mood.
Just very quickly to your point, I do think Clinton is very much a workman-like candidate. That's, you know, she, and watching her follow the president is very striking for that reason. I do think that they were flying around this weekend convinced that they were going to win. They were celebrating in the air on that airplane.
I concur. That was their body language. A couple of things here. We're going to run to a quick break, but I wanted to show you this graphic. 56% of the national vote is in. That's the difference between them. And also down on Rachel's side, the blue graphic down there that doesn't look like the election graphics, that's real. That's the Dow Jones futures. We have watched it fall through the 300, 400 level. It topped 700. It's back in the sixes. That's real. We'll keep an eye on that. Another break for us. We're waiting for over 10 states to Clinton headquarters on the left. That's the Javits Convention Center, a sprawling structure along the Hudson River on the right. The much more modest space, the ballroom inside the venerable New York Hilton on 6th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, a building visible from our building here, and surrounded, as are all the secure locations tonight in New York, with New York City Sanitation Department dump trucks filled with sand. They have decided to use those as an impenetrable barrier. Trump Tower tonight is surrounded by dump trucks. It's quite a sight.
I will also say shout out to NYPD tonight for the number of officers that they've got out dealing with. I mean, the last time that we had 2 election night parties for the 2 major candidates in New York City was 1944. They've got to deal with tonight in a race that has already featured a lot of misbehavior by fans on both sides. And the shout out to the NYPD in terms of how much overtime they're working tonight and what they've got their hands on. It's unprecedented.
Put it this way, the next president of the United States is in New York City tonight. In Michigan tonight, they have a barn burner. Kevin Tibbles is live in Grand Rapids. Hey, Kevin, what do you have there?
I guess you could describe it as a barn burner. I'm actually in a pizza joint in Grand Rapids, which of course is Gerald Ford country. But I mean, are you surprised what is going on?
I am, and I love it.
Why?
Because Michigan is in play, and we are taking back our country.
Well, I'm going to come back to you here, but that is because about 45 minutes to an hour ago, people were sitting around enjoying the evening, Brian. But all of a sudden, especially, when they started to see the numbers come in from Ohio, for example, and then the numbers started to come in here, I've got to tell you, in Grand Rapids, they've only got about 20% of the votes counted, but it is leaning in that direction. And now I'm going to come back to what does that mean, take our country back?
It means ending corruption. It means loving our country. It means bringing back freedom and liberty to America and bringing back all the things that we believe in our country.
Is there some kind of as you can tell, Brian, I mean, it's a loud, raucous place. Is there some kind of a message that you're supposed to be trying to be sending to some establishment out there?
No, it's just being fiscally responsible. It's taking care of America. It's ending corruption. It's draining the swamp.
And as a woman, I have to ask this question. You voted for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Why?
Because Donald Trump is going to change America and bring back integrity and bring back America to what we need to be, where we need to be.
What we have seen is some sort of a change seems to be taking place in Michigan tonight. And Brian, I'm sure I'll be talking to you as soon as that change however way it goes, happens. I'll send it back to you, Brian.
In the meantime, you're in the right place. Stay surrounded by people, pizza, and the beverage of your choice. Kevin Tibbles in Jerry Ford's home congressional district.
And everybody, I mean, we heard James Carville and Steve Schmidt agreeing earlier this hour. Our insiders, our professionals agreeing that Michigan's going to decide the presidency tonight. Right now, just to check in, with 45% of the vote in Michigan, it's real tight, 48-47, a tiny lead for Donald Trump with just under half of the vote in. We're also keeping a very, very, very close eye on Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania has a little bit less than 2/3 of the vote in. We've got 65% of the vote in Pennsylvania right now. Hillary Clinton does have a lead right now in Pennsylvania. We also want to look at the other race that's outstanding right now in Pennsylvania, which is the Senate race in Pennsylvania. This has been a really interesting one to watch thus far. Pat Toomey's the Republican incumbent. He's been very cagey about his support for Donald Trump, or lack thereof. He waited until just over an hour before polls closed in Pennsylvania before he voted, so he would have to admit publicly that he did in fact vote for Trump. But right now, it's too close to call in Pennsylvania. You see that small lead there on behalf of the Democratic challenger to incumbent Senator Pat Toomey. Katie McGinty was chief of staff to the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf. She right now is leading Pat Toomey, apparently, with 64% of the vote in, but this is too close to call. Steve Kornacki is keeping a very close eye on Pennsylvania in terms of where we've got the vote in and what's still to come. Steve?
Yeah, you see the situation right now. Clinton is leading in Pennsylvania. The votes that have been counted, the gap Donald Trump is trying to make up here in the state at this moment is 116,000 votes. Now, is it possible for him to get that? Let's take a look at the big places that are in and what's left. For the Democrats, they have squeezed pretty much what they are going to squeeze out of Philadelphia. Still more vote, a little bit more vote to come in. Remember, they had the big rally there. Now, the target number here, the dream number, I should say, for Democrats here would have been something approaching 490 to 500,000 in terms of the margin. That's what Obama got. He got 492. You see right now Clinton's lead is sitting there closer to 400,000. They still feel they can win the state at 400,000, but it gets dicier at that point. Here's something that's a bit of a surprise. The suburbs of Philadelphia. We talked so much about college-educated white voters, suburbs of Philadelphia. This is going to be big for Hillary Clinton this year. Well, she's leading in them. You can see it's all blue around here, but let me take you through it. Look at the margin in bucks, 49-47. That's pretty much unchanged from what we saw 4 years ago. That's not a huge shift to Hillary Clinton. There's a slight shift in Montgomery County. I think this was closer to about 17 points 4 years ago. You can see in Chester, this one was a little closer 4 years ago. There's been movement here. But again, this is not overall. This is about what Delaware came in at. This is not overall that dramatic a shift. Also, Pittsburgh basically in right now. The reason Donald Trump would still have some life in Pennsylvania, looking at the votes to come in, you see a lot of places that are red. York County running up the score here. You got vote there. You've got vote that's still going to come in Butler County. So there are some red areas left out here. Clinton leading.
All right, Steve Kornacki, did you have a...
Clinton's leading. I look at those county results. I mean, they're still talking about getting 450 out of Philadelphia, not 400,000. But, you know, that's a hell of a majority. And Jack Kennedy carried that city by 330, Humphrey by 450. There's a tradition of that kind of plurality coming out of the city. But it's been, as Steve points out, the huge difference is the suburbs used to be moderate Republican. They were New York Herald Tribune Republicans, Rockefeller Republicans. They don't exist anymore.
Nor does the New York Herald Tribune.
Right, the Herald Tribune went. The whole idea of a moderate Republican from the Northeast, like Bill Scranton, Nelson Rockefeller, Christine Todd Whitman, you know, from Jersey. There was this long pattern of well-to-do, in many cases, Republican moderates in that part of the country, and they're gone.
Well,
and that's why the burbs are
add Lowell Weicker, Mac Mathias, keep
exactly
going.
Those people.
Another break. Our last break before the top of the hour, 11 o'clock poll closings. If anything happens, we'll break out.
Under 4 minutes to the next poll closings at 11 o'clock Eastern at the top of the hour. Just a few minutes from now, we're going to have poll closings in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Hawaii. At this point, this is the point of the race where everybody who looks back on having covered previous presidential races says, oh, yeah, by the time we called Hawaii, it's not like we didn't know what was going to be happening. We have no idea what's going to be happening. Right now, at this point, of all of the swing states that you could possibly be watching, anybody who had a list of swing states right now, the only ones that are decided are Virginia for Hillary Clinton, Colorado for Hillary Clinton, New Mexico for Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump winning Ohio. Those are the projections in terms of NBC News. But in terms of outstanding states, we are still waiting for results on Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Nevada. Chris, you've been sort of doing your own reporting on the Pennsylvania prospects.
I just talked to the chairman of the Democratic City Committee. He is basically, to use the old term, boss of the city. And they're still expecting to get between 420 and 440,000. Maybe up to 450. So they're still meeting their quota, which has always been enough to carry the state. Where there has been a flattening out of expectations has been the suburbs. They've certainly, the fact that Hillary Clinton has carried all 4 suburban counties is history. But the fact that she's done it not so well is the surprise and the question mark for the state. My surmise is they're still going to carry the state, but not dramatically.
We're also looking at Michigan. Michigan appears to be very, very tight right now. We've got a little bit less than half of the vote in. Trump appears to be in the lead, 49-46. But again, that's with less than half of the vote in. Steve Kornacki, do you have any intel for us on Michigan right now?
Yeah, we could take you through where the vote still has to come in. The margin here for Donald Trump sitting, about 57,000 votes. That's what Hillary Clinton's got to make up. Obviously, the best thing for Democrats here, if you're looking for good news, if you're a Democrat and you're looking in Wayne County, this is where Detroit is. This is a place that cast something on the order of 800 some odd thousand votes 4 years ago. So you can see there is a lot of vote to come in Wayne. The other thing I can tell you is early on we had numbers here that showed a much closer race. It seems like the suburban parts of Wayne County reported first. So the city of Detroit now may be the heart of what's to come in. So Hillary Clinton, you can expect she's going to get a lot of votes out of Wayne. Also next door, still votes to come in. This is where Ann Arbor, University of Michigan is. If you're Donald Trump, though, check this out. We talked about it earlier. Macomb County produced a total of 400,000 votes 4 years ago. You can see a lot of vote to come in Macomb. This is a big reversal. This was a Democratic county in 2008, a Democratic county in 2012. This is looking like a Trump county by double digits tonight. So that is a shift in favor of the in favor of the Republicans. Here's another one we might be looking at. We talk about these characteristics of Michigan. Saginaw was Obama country 4 years ago. Trump leading there right now. So we're seeing the map change a little bit in Michigan.
Steve Kornacki looking tight at Michigan right now, as everybody is right now. There's a lot of states that are still outstanding, but we're starting to key in on which of the ones are essentially forks in the road for these little paths that either of the candidates might have. At this point, each of the candidates has a path that's more like a deer track through light brush. Neither of them has a yellow brick road that you can see from space, right? These are pretty narrow paths that each of them are going to be following, and that's why individual states like Michigan may end up being the thing that everybody in the country is watching.
And channeling our old friend Tim Russert, who we always miss, especially on nights like this, we have all vowed to rename Michigan temporarily just by saying it 3 times. Michigan, 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 given its importance tonight. Here are our 11 p.m. poll closings. There they are in gold. We've gone all the way out west, and here we go up the side of the building. In the Golden State, in California, the projected winner is Hillary Clinton. Note the electoral votes, 55. In the state of Washington, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In the state of Oregon in the Pacific Northwest, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In the state of Hawaii, 4 electoral votes, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In Idaho, interesting race, as we've been saying, Donald Trump, the predicted winner, 4 electoral votes. Here is the bar graph to 270. Here is the math. Right now, Hillary Clinton 209 to Donald Trump's 172. More on that as we continue. Here are the states we continue to watch. Too close to call, and these are some big ticket items. Florida, Pennsylvania, Georgia, one of the first states to close tonight. Here we still are. Michigan, Michigan, Michigan. North Carolina, 15 electoral votes. Minnesota with 10. Iowa, still too close to call. Nevada, still too close to call. Ditto New Hampshire. And the state of Maine, which we have moved from too early to too close, with not even half the raw vote in. Now, the list of states we are characterizing too early to call: Arizona, Wisconsin, and Utah. Let's take a look at the reds and the Blues down on home ice. In this road to 270, unmistakable color patterns, but a West Coast bulwark with this 11 p.m. Eastern time poll closing for Hillary Clinton.
It's interesting. At this poll closing, this is the first one where we've had all of the races called. We had no too close, no too early in the races that just closed right now at 11 o'clock. Also, no surprises. Had any of these been a surprise, it would have been seismic. But yes, Idaho is going to be red. The whole West Coast is going to be blue, including the island state of Hawaii. We only have one state left to close now, which is Alaska. That's the only state outstanding in terms of its poll closing. We're just waiting on states that are too early and too close to call.
Let's go to a Senate call on the wall here in the studio, and that's Ron Johnson
a big one.
going back for the Republicans. The Democrats were quite confident that Mr. Feingold would be going back to the U.S. Senate. And, Chris, what's the quote you've been using all night? But you can't go home again.
You can't go home again. I think Feingold would have been a big surprise. I think historically he would have been the first person to defeat the person who beat him when he had the office.
He would have been. That's right.
But I have to tell you, as most of us have been tracking this potential for the Democrats to win back the Senate, we began it with Illinois, which they've won. They've beaten Kirk out there. Duckworth won. And this was the second easiest. Everyone said this is the second easiest. And the third easiest was going to be Indiana. That was going to be an easy
Maybe
pick.
Pennsylvania,
Well, then, of course, we got the 2 or 3 outstanding now. So it's very much up in the air. Now they needed 4, net 4 pickup to win, and the Democrats did. And yet, the thing about that, I do have values besides my horse race interest in this. I do know certain senators who are solid enough to stay there in normal circumstances. Kelly Ayotte, much more hawkish for my taste, but a solid senator, an impressive senator. If she holds on, that shows she's got the stuff in this kind of win condition up there. But I think clearly this thing's up in the air now. They have to, they didn't knock off Burr. Russ didn't win. But they didn't knock off, they didn't pick up the vote in Indiana. They didn't pick it up now in Wisconsin. They picked it up in Illinois, but they're just beginning this climb, and there are not many options left. I think they now have to win the other ones we're talking about, New Hampshire and Pennsylvania.
And Missouri's also still out there. It's too early to call at this point. Yeah.
That's going to be one interesting race between the old pro, as you said earlier, he's been around forever, and a guy who has all these Washington connections, a real leadership type, and up against this guy, Kander, who knows how to lock and load a gun with his blindfold on.
Military intelligence officer.
More fascinating ads of this cycle.
But you see there, I mean, it's too early to call, less than 40% in, but Blunt has a pretty big lead in terms of the vote that's in already. New Hampshire and Kelly Ayotte's race, that's very close.
We have a projection. Donald Trump is being awarded North Carolina.
Whoa. Well, that's a pick.
Just came in 15 electoral votes. This makes all kinds of different paths even more interesting. There's the electoral race, 209, 187. Here it is in color.
We're going to have to start talking about the deer tracks again, the paths to 270 at this point.
It's still contiguous.
Yeah.
It's all red together there.
Well,
that's
if you're going to hike it, that's useful. But in terms of who's going to be president, I want to know the numbers.
Together.
Hey, Lawrence O'Donnell, I want to hear from James Carville.
We've got James Carville and Mike Murphy here. And, James, you were already discounting North Carolina for the Clinton campaign.
Right. You're not going to win Virginia narrowly and carry North Carolina.
And as we were watching this last group of returns, it was actually one of the Senate races that got your attention more than these presidential returns right
Wisconsin,
now. And that's Wisconsin. What did you see?
We called Ron Johnson easy early in Wisconsin, which tells me that the path for Hillary Clinton and the Democrats in Wisconsin is going to be pretty narrow. The math in Michigan, Mike and I were just doing some sort of back of the envelope calculations. I can see a way that she can win Michigan, but look, every domino has to fall now.
Yeah, Michigan's super close, but there's a lot of Detroit left to come. If it's normal and some Genesee County, which is Flint, and Washtenaw, Ann Arbor, Trump's doing well out state, but a lot of it is in. So she's in the hunt in Michigan. It's tight. Right. But we're looking at that saying, hey, if Detroit's only worth $300,000, again, it's starting to look like she's in the hunt there. And then we hear Ron Johnson, who is considered the second most vulnerable Republican, has won pretty comfortably in Wisconsin. that indicates that the drama may be moving to Wisconsin.
So for the scorecards at home, if the Clinton campaign takes Michigan, the next thing to watch is Wisconsin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Wisconsin could be what breaks it or
Right.
makes it for the Clinton.
It looks like the Republicans may retain the Senate. If Trump wins the presidency, the Democratic Party will have the least amount of power that I can ever remember a political party having, both at the national level and the state level. It's hard to overestimate what this means tonight and how nervous I am.
Wisconsin, we haven't carried Wisconsin since '84, so he's turning the map a little upside down in some ways here. If it happens.
If it happens. Let's be clear. I want to be very clear that there's a way that the Democrats can win the presidency. I want to be clear about that. But again, a lot of now the dominoes have to start falling our way.
All right, we're back to you, Brian.
All right, Lawrence O'Donnell, thanks. Steve Kornacki over at the board. Let's talk paths here, Steve.
Yeah, let's take a look at exactly what it would take, what they were just talking about there for Donald Trump. So you see the scoreboard right now with the new updates. So let's take you through a couple scenarios here. We've shown you it's not been called, but Donald Trump is leading in Florida right now. Georgia, it's not been called. But again, if Donald Trump were to get these two states, New Hampshire, this is too close to call right now. It is winnable for Trump. There is this congressional district, this rural congressional district in Maine. It's very winnable for Donald Trump. Let's leave Michigan and Wisconsin alone for a second, and let's go to Arizona, the next most likely target for Trump. Again, if he wins Arizona, look where he... Oh, and by the way, there's this one congressional district in Omaha. Again, if he wins that, then look where he's sitting. These are the most winnable states left for him, and he's sitting at 268, and he would be one state away from the presidency. Now, we're talking about Michigan. You got a lot of Democratic vote to come in Michigan, Trump leading by about 40,000 votes right now. You got Wisconsin. You still have votes to come in from Milwaukee. You still have votes to come in from the county where Madison is. Those are Democratic areas of the state. However, we are also seeing a lot of rural counties that are traditionally blue flip to red in Wisconsin. I can show you that in a minute, but Wisconsin, right now, that's why it's too close to call. And Nevada, that would be the third target. Donald Trump, if the other things I just showed you go his way, he needs to win one of these. He needs to win Nevada, or he needs to win Wisconsin, or he needs to win Michigan. If he does that, he's president-elect.
All right. Let's talk about it. Nicole Wallace?
Listen, I have been hearing for the last hour that Republicans are giddy about the prospect of controlling all three branches of power, which is what a lot of Republicans, even Trump detractors, think is within reach tonight. I've also heard from my Trump-loving parents who said if you're lucky, Trump won't deport you. I'm not so sure. I think Steve Schmidt, Mike Murphy, and I, if we go missing after here, like maybe have the building security. Right. Yeah, I think I'm near the top of it. But you know, we just had Bill McInturff on across the hall, and all of the polls were wrong. She did not have a 3.5-point lead going into this morning, and that's what the average of polls had her at. This is not a map that reflects a three-point lead. She didn't have that. I don't know that she ever had it. People will I think the Clinton camp is already sort of putting out this Comey spin, and it's half of the story, but the other half is what it did to him. He closed stronger than anyone in recent political history, and our folks that were on the trail with him talked about it. The New York Times wrote an incredible piece about how it was this thunderbolt that just got him on message. He made a closing argument that is being reflected in the exit polls about being an outsider. In a year when you like no one, you pick the known unknown, not the known, no, I don't like her. You pick the, I don't know if I don't like him. And that's what they picked. They picked, you know, I know I don't like her. I don't know how much I don't like him. And the closing argument from the Clinton campaign, this is about what kind of country you live in, is something every parent is going to have to grapple with, because this is the country we live in, where the disgust, I think 10 months ago I called him political chemo, who wipes out all the healthy blood cells, who takes out everything with him, because people think the disease is so acute, they're willing to take the strongest medicine possible. I think that's what we are seeing. The cancer was Washington, and a lot more people than we predicted, than our pollsters predicted, viewed him as the cure.
Why aren't any incumbents losing?
Well, you know, George W. Bush campaigned for, I think, every Republican who won tonight on the board, and his message was anti-protectionism, anti-isolationism, and anti-nativism. So voters are really smart, and I think they've calculated that at the top they want change.
But it can't be that
But how is that
Washington's-
smart if you want if you're
It can't be
voting
that
for
Washington's
two
the
different
problem.
things,
I'm
right?
return all of Congress.
You're voting for two
then
diametrically
why isn't
opposed
she
things.
winning? And listen, it is far more likely at this point that he wins than she wins. It is far more likely at this point that, and I say this not as someone who voted for him, but it is far more likely that he wins, and it is far more likely that tomorrow morning we're talking about a Trump cabinet than a Clinton cabinet.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is that the diagnosis is that people wanted to get rid of Washington. Because if they wanted to get rid of Washington, they would have thrown out Ron Johnson. They would have
she'd
thrown,
been there 30 years. I think at the top, they viewed her as less appealing than him. I'm looking at the same polls
but
you are.
it's not a diagnosis for the rest of what happened tonight. I think, which I think is a fascinating thing. I don't know what it means that the Republican Party survives intact, and the only thing that changes is a radically different type of person at the top.
I am not saying it's intact. I am not saying it's intact. Paul Ryan and Jim Comey, two Republicans, become like the last dinosaurs tomorrow morning. They become the most endangered species in the country.
Because Trump's going to try to throw Ryan out?
Donald Trump wants to work with the Speaker Ryan. He may say so tonight, and if he wins in a victory speech. Paul Ryan is endangered. He had the most uncomfortable and really excruciating endorsement of Donald Trump. If Trump wins, I think he wants a speaker that's going to go along with his.
But he's going to get in there and be like, vengeance is mine. John McCain, you're dead.
I don't think the party's intact. I'm only half joking about getting deported myself. It's not intact, but it has, at the level of our voters and our base, it has embraced change over stability.
What does the new party call itself?
Like I keep thinking of Prince, the band formerly known as. I don't know.
It's still the
party formerly known as the Republicans.
Had they thrown out more people running for Congress and running for the Senate, I would think that the Republican Party was going to be radically different. Instead, I think they just swapped out the guy at the top. Everybody else goes back.
He's just not any guy, though.
It's a pretty radical change at the top, though.
Yep.
It is. And so, one of the questions I think we would be asking if this went that way is, where do you draw the line pro-Trump, anti-Clinton, in terms of how people voted and why they voted that way?
We have a poll we take here at NBC Wall Street Journal, which Jack Germond believed in as religion over the years. It's the right direction, wrong direction question. It's not ideological. It can mean we were too far left. It can mean we were too far right. You have to read it the way you read it. But it's been pretty consistently 2/3 we don't like the direction of this country. And so we tried, as a country, we picked Hope, big poster. I was for that all the way, of course, I'll admit it. And we're looking all the time for change. We made changes in 08. We made a change in 10, right? We made more of a change in 14. We're maybe making a change in 16. The president had a tremendous bond with this candidate for president of the Democratic Party. I've never seen a closer bond. She's my candidate. He's my president. Let's get together. We're going to do this. Well, it's not working tonight, so clearly it's certainly not clear yet who's going to win. But I do think there's tremendous response to that wrong direction number, that people keep trying to find the president they want, and they keep hoping. The Bernie crowd, this guy Bernie wasn't going to be president, but it was pushing that button. I want change. Everybody was pushing that button who voted for Bernie. He didn't make it.
And people who like Trump liked Bernie as a second choice.
They want that change. They're banging on the pipes, more hot water, whatever they're saying. They want something. Like the kid says, I want an item. I want a thing.
In Bernieville, a Vermont Republican has just been elected governor.
Well, maybe that's how
I
just think that there's an urge for something we don't have.
Yeah.
And if Trump wins, I think it will be the toughest job in history for him to deliver what he promised. Well, if Hillary wins, she has to deal as an establishment figure, the first woman president, with a need to try to bind this country together and keep it workable for 4 years. And that means dealing with who is ever left on the Republican side.
Across our newsroom, Hugh Hewitt, we've had many discussions with you, Hugh, over this campaign season. We have them all on video. What do you make of what you're witnessing?
Well, I am perhaps the only admitted reluctant Trump voter in the building. And so I'm happy to explain. I think there are millions of people like me, people who are worried about the Supreme Court. I think Obamacare is the untold story here. I think it just clobbered people in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. That's why Ron Johnson won. I had him on my radio show this morning talking about Obamacare. I think the Republicans are holding the Senate because there is a promise of the repeal and replacing of Obamacare. And while I understand Nicole's concerns, I don't share them. I think that what you will see with Donald Trump is a completely disruptive change force. There will be a drop in the market tomorrow. It will come back, and he will surround himself with Mike Pence's, and they will not throw out Paul Ryan. He will want to accomplish things. He's a builder. He is a very different personality than we've dealt with before. But for all those reluctant Trump voters out there who came home in the last 2 weeks, and I am one of them, we're feeling as though it's a policy election, and it's a rejection of Secretary Clinton's ethics. That's what it comes down to.
Hugh Hewitt will continue to knock this around here in this room. We're going to fit in a break. We are covering, to call it a fluid situation at the presidential level is an understatement. We'll be right back. We are back. These are the faces in the crowd. That is the Jacob Javits Convention Center on the west side of Manhattan along the Hudson River. We showed the overflow room earlier before the actual crowd had been loaded in. There was a story in the New York tabloids that was knocked down just a few days ago about the fireworks, the victory fireworks celebration that was planned for tonight over the Hudson River until cooler, calmer and more reasonable heads prevailed within the Clinton campaign, and they stopped the fireworks 2 or 3 days ago.
Stop the plans for the fireworks, at least, yeah.
So that's the situation we're looking at. Steve Kornacki's at the board talking about Wisconsin. Steve, what have you found?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about Wisconsin, one of these states. If it comes to the scenario where things break Trump's way the way they are in states he's leading, this could be one of those that puts him over the top. He is leading right now by 60,000 votes. Now, where are the votes left? There are votes left in Milwaukee County where Clinton's winning big. There's probably a little bit more than 100,000 votes left here. Again, depends on turnout. Could be a little bit more. Clinton will pick up votes here. She will also pick up votes in Dane County. There were 300,000 votes that were cast here in 2012. You can see they've still got probably another 100,000 votes or so out. Clinton will make up significant ground here. Here's the problem, though. Also out, look at this. La Crosse County. This is just starting to come in. Trump leading here, and Trump's leading all around here. Trump's going to pick up ground here. Here's a shocker. Brown County, where Green Bay is. This was an Obama county. Donald Trump's winning this thing by 20 points, and it's only half in. He's going to pad his margin here. You want the story of Wisconsin? You want the story of the Rust Belt? You want really the story of America in a lot of ways? Check out this map, this red-blue map as we see right now, and look at the sea of red in Wisconsin, a state that last voted for a Republican 32 years ago in 1984. What did this look like just 4 years ago? Look at all that red in the Obama election 4 years ago. Look, all that blue. Donald Trump has taken, and a lot of these are very small counties, Donald Trump has taken them, and he's turned them red tonight in Wisconsin. Could be going Republican for the first time in 32 years.
Wow. I want to just talk about one factor here that we haven't discussed at all over the course of this evening, which is in some of these states. I've been looking specifically at some of the states where Trump is leading, even if we don't have a call in those states, just these very close states, and Wisconsin among them. There are a number of these states in which the third-party balloting, the third-party vote, is a factor in terms of the size of the margin here between Trump and Clinton. Again, you can't always say that every third-party vote came from one major party ticket or another. But in Florida, which we have not called, in New Hampshire, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Iowa, in all of these places, the numbers that you're seeing for the third party more than account for the difference between the two candidates. And so if those states end up getting called with these very tiny margins, you may see that the Gary Johnson vote is what made the difference, that the Gary Johnson and Jill Stein vote is what made a difference. And I'm not just talking about Utah, which is a very interesting three-way race. I'm talking about the state of Florida. I mean, there's, depending on where those votes came from, a lot of Democrats may be looking at Gary Johnson and seeing Ralph Nader there.
Yep. Not a pretty picture for them.
Well, it is what it is. We'll go into this eyes wide open. If you vote for somebody who can't win for president, it means that you don't care who wins for president.
That's what I think. And when you talk to people like that and say, why are you letting the vote go against the interests you normally support? And they act like it's some sort of a Vichy thing, like you're not really taking sides or something. Some kind of, I shouldn't use that term, but some kind of neutrality.
Switzerland.
Yeah, Switzerland. And neutrality. And even Switzerland was a pro-German neutrality. Yeah. I mean, you really do take sides. And what side are you on is a pretty good question. The union guys always ask that. What side are you on? And I think people don't like making decisions because then you're responsible for who wins. But then people don't want that responsibility. Oh, there's some flaws with Hillary. I'm not really sure I like her. All right, make a decision. I think some of the Republicans, however, if this is what happens tonight, went home the last 2 weeks and said, I care more about a conservative Supreme Court than I care about a guy with moral problems as president. I'll live with Donald Trump.
But the idea that you look at Donald Trump and you think, Manhattan billionaire, thrice married.
No, but he'll give you the Supreme Court you want.
Maybe he will.
Well, they hope he will.
He's also promised to build a wall on the southern border and to ban all Muslims from coming into this country.
Women who have abortions.
Why do we believe some of these things and not some of the others?
Well, because they're hopeful.
Well,
they're hopeful.
Hope is a word for it. Delusion is another.
No, I don't know because we don't know who Trump is. I think a good argument could be made that of the three issues he ran on, illegal immigration, loss of factory jobs through bad trade deals, and wars he opposed, he may not have a commitment to any of those. How do we know? They were brilliant marketing decisions, though. Brilliant marketing, because they tapped into real feelings out there that people really have. And he tapped into them. We'll see.
I was just going to say really quickly on the third party vote, because if you talk to particularly younger voters who were choosing third party, it wasn't even not wanting to make a decision. There was sort of a chic to saying, I'm above both of those candidates. And I think we have to own a little bit in the media ourselves this idea that we sort of equalized, not us sitting here at this table, but in generally and broadly the idea that these were two equally flawed, equally unpopular, sort of two sides of the same bad coin candidates. I think in general the portrayal, every story, if you Google stories of Hillary Clinton, the term trustworthiness, honesty and trustworthiness was in the story. It was in every story, right? Whether or not the story itself had to do specifically with that. And I think that resonated with a lot of younger voters in particular who had a sort of a vague feeling that she was just as bad. And so the idea of there was a chic to saying, well, both of those two candidates are so bad that I'm going to take this sort of high road of picking one of the others, even if they didn't know anything about them. I mean, I have my two kids, I have two that are old enough to vote, who had friends that were like, I don't like either one. And they didn't know anything about Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, but there was sort of a chic to saying, I'll choose this third option. But to your point, Rachel, that margin in Florida, you're talking about over 200,000 votes combined for those candidates. So it actually, you are making a decision. It could flip the election.
Oh, yeah.
And on the question of Donald Trump and what it is he believes in, I think one of the things that we know he believes in for certain is revenge. So if you are Paul Ryan or Hillary Clinton or
so smart,
we know he believes in that.
He has a list
deeply.
He made the list already.
So one thing you can count on is that given all of that power and all of those powerful agencies with which you can seek revenge.
In terms of Paul Ryan and the revenge factor, we've actually heard from Paul Ryan tonight. Paul Ryan was reelected to his own seat in Congress tonight, but we've also heard from him on the broader state of the race. Chris Hayes has that. Chris?
Yeah, Paul Ryan has been reelected, and he has addressed supporters. He, of course, will be returning as of now as the Speaker of the House, although it's going to be a very uncertain future for him should Donald Trump emerge victorious tonight. We do know, as you said, that Donald Trump believes in revenge. It's one of his sort of core beliefs. He's stated it often. You hit me, I hit you back. Here's Paul Ryan talking to his supporters in Janesville with his fingers crossed.
I am so eager to get back to work for you, to get on with fixing our country's problems. We have so much potential in this country, so much potential. And if we can just tap it, that's what's ahead of us. By some accounts, I've just been sitting there watching the polls. By some accounts, this could be a really good night for America. This could be a good night for us. Fingers crossed.
One has to note here that should things break in Republicans' way the rest of the night, they have a very realistic possibility tomorrow of controlling all three, both the House, the Senate, and the White House. And the question would then become, who's in the driver's seat on policy? What does the Trump administration look like? Is it a version of Paul Ryanism, of course, a person who supported free trade deals, including the TPP in the past, Mike Pence, who voted for NAFTA? Is it Trumpism? Is it something in between? Is it something out of left field? Remarkably, we sit here tonight with not a very good idea at all of what that looks like.
Chris Hayes at our news desk tonight. Thank you. I would just say, can we just put up that bug that we had up there just a moment ago, the Dow bug that we had? One of the things that Chris was reporting on earlier, which you've been keeping an eye on over the course of really the end of this campaign, we've been watching the markets react whenever Donald Trump appears to pip up in the polls right now. And tonight, you see the Dow Jones futures. Obviously, the Dow Jones is closed right now. The market is not closed in the is not open in the United States. These are futures, people betting on what's going to happen, or people putting their making their stakes in terms of what's going to happen at market opening. Down nearly 700 points tonight, with Donald Trump having such a better night than a lot of people thought he would.
The Dow futures were not on the minds of the people who have turned vast stretches of our country red this evening. We have a call, the state of Florida. What we are terming the apparent winner, Donald Trump. In the state of Florida, 29 electoral votes. The apparent winner terminology. Here is the electoral math. 216 Trump, 209 Clinton. The race for 270, here's how it plays out visually. So much talk about the paths to 270. Who merely wanted Florida?
Right now,
who needed it? We have another call back-to-back. Utah, Trump. 6 electoral votes. The projected winner in Utah. Here we go. 222, 209. Back down to the ice we go for the depiction in color. Red and blue.
Well, still connects.
And the remaining gray.
In terms of the swing states tonight and how they have gone, we've got Hillary Clinton, just in terms of swing states and battlegrounds tonight, prevailing in Virginia, in Colorado, in New Mexico. We've got Donald Trump prevailing, according to NBC News projections, Donald Trump prevailing in North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida.
I need to interrupt with another one. Trump wins Iowa, the projected winner in Iowa. We've had a flurry of projections here. 6 more electoral votes for Donald Trump this evening. 228, 209.
Again, the number that you're going for here is 270. That's the number of electoral votes that you need in order to win the presidency.
Steve Kornacki has just run over to the map because of Michigan, Steve.
Yeah, well, we've been telling you, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, these 3 states emerging as key. Hillary Clinton playing catch-up in Michigan. Where does it stand right now? It's tightened. Hillary Clinton polling within 17,000 votes of Donald Trump in Michigan. Let me show you where the votes are left here. If she's to make that up, first of all, take a look in Wayne County. This is where Detroit is, not just Detroit. There's also some suburbs. You see, there's a lot of votes still to come in Wayne County. Over 800,000 votes were cast here 4 years ago. You see, you add that up, we're really only at about the halfway point if you're using 2012 as a benchmark. So Hillary Clinton can get votes out of there. There are still, though, votes to come out of Macomb County. Again, this was an Obama county. This is one Trump targeted. And look, he has turned it around. There are still votes coming out of here. He can make up some of the margin there. He's also doing surprisingly well. Again, this was an Obama county. Trump appears to have flipped it. This is something we saw in Wisconsin as well. So there are Trump areas as well. And if you just look at this, like we did in Wisconsin, look at all the red on this map right now in Michigan as the returns come in. Go back to 2012. You saw these blue areas. It's not quite as dramatic as Wisconsin, but you're seeing it. So Hillary Clinton has opportunities, and you see the votes have changed again. She's 25,000 behind. There are opportunities really in Wayne County and a little bit in Ann Arbor for her to make that up. If she can check Michigan off, then she can get, if she were to get Wisconsin and Nevada, that would stop Trump.
Steve Kornacki, right now, what's the total amount of the vote that's in Michigan? We're not yet up to 60% of that vote.
Yeah, and it's tough to, yes, we're at about 60%. And again, the big sort of thing that's lagging right here, it's Wayne, it's Detroit. You've really got about half the vote here in, by far the largest county. So this is the biggest thing yet to come in. But then it's that, a big sort of Democratic county versus a lot of small and medium-sized, what tonight are red counties, where, you know, one by one he can chip away at that.
Steve Kornacki, thank you. Again, just keeping in mind what's still outstanding in terms of NBC News projections, Georgia, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, all key states where we are waiting on the final word. And there are obvious combinations of those remaining few states that tell us who the next president will be.
I just got word that Pennsylvania looks strong for the Democrats again. Brady's saying out of the Philadelphia machine it's going to be 450 to 460. So that's way up where he needed to get. So I think that state's good for Clinton right now. But if Trump's got to decide what kind of a president he's going to be, we're in a weird situation right now.
Oh, I can confirm we're in a weird situation right now.
Something made me think of the movies a few minutes ago. I forget what it was. I was thinking of the movies. I think of Jeremy Lerner's line in The Candidate. What do we do now?
What do we do now?
What do we do now? And that might be the situation Trump will find himself in.
Robert Redford sitting on the edge of the bed.
Right.
Ben Ginsburg is here. Ben has been a lot of things. He is Mr. Republican, or at least enjoyed that title about a year ago. He was the former general counsel to the RNC and now partnered with Jones Day in Washington. Ben, I just want you to free associate. You've been through this journey. Tomorrow morning, an organization bearing the title Republican Party is going to take an assessment along with the Democrats of what has just happened, which is at this hour is not entirely clear.
Absolutely true. I think what it means for the party is that Donald Trump has overperformed. We didn't think at this hour of the night we'd be talking with Donald Trump having as many electoral votes as he does and as many states still outstanding. So the Republican Party is going to wake up tomorrow feeling good about itself. What appears to be a strong showing in Senate races, keeping the House, will also perhaps put aside some of the guns in the circular firing squad that look to be forming, whether Donald Trump pulls it out or not, or Hillary Clinton's the president.
I guess a question that comes out of the organic conversation we've been having is that a Republican Party in title only. What is this new organization?
Well, one of the things that Donald Trump has done for the party is shown that the three-legged stool of the Reagan administration that Republicans had run on for the last 30 years is no longer exists, that you can win without that. So what's interesting is that the Donald Trump administration, his platform, what he'll stand for and what he'll put in legislatively is still very much an unformed act. So it does at least present the opportunity to create the sort of small government conservative philosophy in solving the problems of the people who have come out to vote for him in ways that most didn't see coming.
Ben, thank you. I know you'll be watching all of this along with us. Steve Schmidt has joined us out here in the studio once again, a veteran of Republican politics and a lot of battles. Your thoughts?
Well, look, it's an extraordinary night. And one thing we already know is that no matter what the outcome is in the presidential race, the party of Reagan no longer exists. And what we saw in this election cycle was really the GOP was an empty vessel, and it was filled up by Trumpism. And so what exists tomorrow is something that's wholly and fundamentally different. And to Ben's point, we really don't know on a policy perspective should Trump become the president-elect of the United States tonight. The policy proposals offered in the campaign were fairly incoherent. We do know, at this hour should become president-elect some of the issues that the country will be dealing with tomorrow. You see the Dow futures down 600 points. You will see panic in NATO allies in the Baltic republics, where he has been permissive with regard regard to Putin's maybe regional expansionist aspirations there. The Turkish president has said that should Trump be elected president, he would deny U.S. ability to launch airstrikes into Iraq against ISIS from the Incirlik base. We know that there would obviously be enormous issues on the southern border with Mexico. The TPP treaty, which hangs in the balance, there's an expectation globally that would be passed, and our Asian relationships will be flat out dead in both a lame duck Congress and a new Congress. So there are enormous issues geopolitically that we'll be dealing with this. This is the seismic event of our political lifetime, just by him getting this close and tapping on the glass. And he may well break it before the night is over.
On that point, Steve, I think one of the things we haven't talked about tonight is Muslim Americans and what the feeling may be in the Muslim American community in this country. The Muslim American community is not a small community in this country. There are about as many Jewish Americans as there are Muslim Americans, and they're a lower profile community. They don't have political power in a way that's often recognized, but they have been targeted in this election by Trump in particular, early and loudly and repeatedly, in a way that has to be making them feel bad tonight, and I think probably in a lot of cases feel worried. Donald Trump never rescinded his pledge that all Muslims should be banned from the United States. And if you're a Muslim American right now, I think that tonight has to feel not just like a seismic political event, but like a seismic event about what America means. And so people, I think, who disagree with Trump about that, who would plan to block and maybe President Trump about that, are going to have to do some work with our Muslim American friends to try to prove that what he says about Muslims in our midst and what it means to be Muslim American isn't the only thing that our country has to say on that subject.
All right. Yeah, I think they'll feel fear.
Yeah.
Steve Kornacki is at the board with some new information on Wisconsin, and we have a potential guest who may join us live. Steve, go ahead.
Well, let's just take a look. We know the importance of this state. There's, votes still coming in. The gap here for Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin right now is about 72,000 votes. But let's just do some math here to show you what she's up against as the vote comes in. What you see is you don't see a lot of blue on this map. So she needs blue counties where there's still vote outstanding where she can make that up. Now, the good news for Clinton is she does have two counties where that's the case. One is Milwaukee. The other is Dane. That's where Madison is. Now, here's the problem. If you go by 2012 turnout, if you look at the turnout in each one of these counties in 2012, and basically I'll show you what I mean. Basically, if you take the vote that would be left, if you add the vote that's up right now, the total turnout, and then you have the vote that is left to get you to the 2012 turnout, and you give Clinton 64% of it. So you say she keeps getting the same pace and we got the same turnout as 12. If you did that in Milwaukee and if you did that in Dane, Clinton would basically be just at that 71,000 level. Now, turnout looks like it's a little higher, so she might be able to get past that 71,000 level. Here's the problem. If she does, it's going to be by a small amount. And then you look at what's left on this map, and we can show you. Let me turn this thing off, and I can show you what I mean. If Clinton gets ahead, look what's left. La Crosse just starting to come in. This is a sea of red out here. Look over here, Brown County. This is now most of this is in, but again, I think there's a little bit more here. Trump picks up ground. All of this red in here. When there's still vote